We still don't use like a professional studio, and we did for a second. And when we made our first EP, we used a studio. We like rented out a studio, and it just didn't work for us. And so we made all of our first album in our childhood house in his bedroom, and it was really intimate and small, and we didn't have much equipment. And then when he moved out, like, we made like Everything I Wanted and No Time to Die and Therefore I Am in this like tiny house that he lived in, like the first house he moved out into, and we recorded in the living room of that house. And then now, since Happier Than Ever and kind of and for all of Hit Me Hard and Soft, and currently, like, we work in his studio. Like, we work in, his basement studio. And it's in his house. It's like right down the steps, and it's like basically in his yard. And we don't have a booth, and we don't have like a sound room. It's like just this little room, and we have all our stuff right there. And I record sitting at the desk, like with the mic in my hand while I'm like typing on the computer. And I think that is what keeps it really intimate and feeling really like us and good, and not like it's this big kind of, I don't know. Yeah,
it's interesting because we have like a symbiotic relationships with the spaces that we work in. Like if you work in an intimate space, you produce intimate work.
Yeah, it's true.
So when you did that first EP, it didn't feel that way. Like it was more, you were what, like 13 years old, 14 years old?
I was 14.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I know. And it wasn't like it was like a really small studio. So I think it was still pretty intimate, but just, the thing I don't like about studios can be really nice. But the thing that I find frustrating about working in a studio is there's no light. You don't have any sunlight. There's no windows usually. And also, you're working in the same building as a lot of other artists, which in like some situations can be really nice. But I think I just get in my head about that, and I just get anxious. And then there's like random people there, and there's people at a front desk, and I just really like making music in a home. I like making what I make in a place where I feel like I don't have to like get dressed and get ready and be,
you can be in pajamas.
Right. I just like it to feel very like comfortable and home.
When did you started getting into music, like creating music? Like, and do you remember like the trigger or something?
Mm-hmm. Well, I always loved to sing, more than anything else in the world. I was singing as soon as I can remember. There was never like a beginning to singing. I just loved it so much. But my mom was always a songwriter, and she was amazing. And she would always be singing and playing guitar and piano. And my mom and dad would both like teach me piano, and I'd sing at the talent shows. And then Phineas would write music, and I thought that was really cool. So then I would write music, and then there was just so much music in our lives, and we were always writing and always singing and even when we were young, and even when we weren't like as close as we then got, like we always sang together, and we always supported each other's music. And there was never any like, ew, Phineas is so lame. And there was never any like, oh, Billie's so lame for her song. It's like, it was very supportive, which I'm really grateful for. But then I remember doing like, I would film myself singing, and I would put them on YouTube. I really wanted people to see my YouTube videos of me singing. And then Phineas and I just started making stuff together and then putting it out on SoundCloud. And I was 13, he was 17. And then we made Ocean Eyes in that same period of time, and then put that out, and that just kind of took off. And then there was kind of a decision point of me being like, okay, is this really where I'm going? I guess. But never in a million years did I think it would get to be anywhere near what it ended up being. I mean, I thought it would be like maybe a couple months of like doing cool things and then back to my life.
When that perception started to change, was it Ocean Eyes? Like the big hit that was Ocean Eyes?
It was at first. Well, the realization was it was kind of slow. The realization was like over time there would be moments and I would forget, and then I would be reminded. I think it was, I started touring when I was 14, and I think that that was definitely like, okay, this is maybe going somewhere. And then I went on my first real tour when I was 15. And then I think that just started to grow. And then I remember like coming home from a tour and trying to go to an ice skating rink with a friend. And then suddenly I was famous and I was like just a kid. And I was like just trying to hang out with a friend out in the world. And suddenly there was like hundreds of people surrounding me and I was really scared and I just didn't know what to do with that. And I think that's the period of time when I was like, oh, this is way bigger than I thought it was. And then it got crazy and terrifying, and then I got to understand it, and then I got to find different ways of coping, and then realizing how cool it really was, and then I had a lot of fun, and now life is intense, but it's really amazing. I get to do the coolest things ever. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's difficult to really understand the numbers that social media sometimes shows you, because you just see like millions and you don't really you can't comprehend what it actually means, like millions of people, millions of bodies.
I know.
Yeah, and was it hard, like coping with fame at such a young age?
Yeah. It's funny because at the time I knew that it was hard for me, but I was just doing it anyway, and I was excited too, and I was like, really, I didn't have any feeling of like, I think I want to stop this. I was like, what's next? What else can I do? I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing, but then it got pretty intense, and I think that looking back, I especially am like, I feel sad for my little young self because of all that, and I just was a lot of weight on my shoulders, and as much as it was amazing, like no young person should have that many people's opinions and that many scary like things to go on. I don't know. It just was like really intense, but it was also amazing. And the fact that I get to do the things that I get to do is like, I can't even say how it's the most incredible thing in the world. And like, I get to provide for my family and like, live a really, really privileged life, and it's awesome. And I'm really grateful for that. But it was definitely really intense, and it is also still intense, but
yeah, and it's something like that you learn like in hindsight, right?
Yeah,